Let's begin this introduction by taking a look at the ZBrush interface. So this interface can be a little bit intimidating if you're coming from another piece of software that has a different way of working. But once you get used to it, it's going to be pretty straightforward as to how this will let you perform your work. So let's just take a look here. Up at the top, you can see we have sort of this title bar, and we've got some different information about our installation of ZBrush. We've got some options here. Especially with minimizing, maximizing, changing our interface. All those can be located up here or can be found up here at the top. Right below that we have a menu list here, okay? And this is a list of all the different things that we can do here in ZBrush. And you can see as I hover over these names, we get a whole bunch of options that come down. Now each one of these little sections here that comes down, this whole big thing, is called a palette. And we can actually take this palette and move it into another location to access it more quickly. But you can always go back if you need to access something. You can always access that from the menu up here, okay? From alpha all the way down to ZScript, okay? So it's kind of in alphabetical order here. Now this main area in the center, this is going to be our ZBrush canvas. This is where we're going to see our 3D model, or if you're doing some illustration, that's where you're going to see your illustration. You can see we've got the floor here, and then we've got a 3D just sphere loaded in that we can move around. So this is the area where you're going to be working. Okay. Now this area right outside here, if you're kind of zoomed in and you can't move around, okay, so it's I'm trying to just move around and it's not letting me because I'm on the model. You can access your navigation by clicking in this safe area out here. So this will allow me to kind of zoom out. And we'll talk about navigation in a little bit, but I just wanted to let you know that that section of your canvas is there. Now, surrounding your canvas are the shelves. So we've got a top shelf and then a left and right shelf where we've got different options loaded up. So on the top shelf, you'll have very important options for going into edit mode, transforming your model with move, scale, and rotate. You can also turn off and on your RGB and materials, whether you're painting with that or not. You can also change your Z-add, Z-sub, which will enable you to push or pull the detail out of your model. These are very important. The Z-intensity and RGB intensity are also very important aspects, and also draw size and focal shift. So we've got a lot of important stuff in the top shelf up here, so make sure to pay attention to that. On the left-hand side, you'll see we have options for the different brushes. If we select and click on one of these, you can see we get a pop-up window, and this contains all of our different brushes we can select. The currently selected brush will show up here. Same thing with stroke. So we've got different strokes we can choose. The currently selected stroke will show up here. And the same thing with alphas, textures, materials, and then finally down here we have a color picker. On the right-hand side, we have options for rendering right up at the top. And then we can also come down here and change how we are viewing our canvas, whether we're seeing it in perspective mode, whether we can see the floor or not. If we want to frame up on the model, we can do that as well. That's going to be located here on your right shelf. And some of the options are actually getting cut off in my interface. I have to squeeze it down a little bit. But there are other options down here too for things that we'll talk about a little bit later. Okay, so we've got these shelves, we've got the canvas, and we've got these menus up here, which are really the palettes that we're going to be using. Now let's say we want to dock a palette in a particular location. Well, there's two places we can put those, and these are called trays. And you can see that there's a little like double arrow on the left hand and right hand side, and kind of a dotted line on either side of that. If we click on that, it'll open up basically a tray here. Now right now we have the tool palette loaded into a tray so that we can access this, and I can just scroll up and down, and I'm basically accessing everything that I would access from this tool menu. So if I click on the tool menu, you can see that it can only be open in one spot at a time. So if I'm accessing it here, I can't access it over here. Okay, you can see how that disappears. It's the exact same palette. So I can go ahead and get rid of that. Now my tray's empty, and if I want to put something else in there, I certainly can. So let's say that I want to access the transform palette. So I'll grab this little icon here, and I'm just going to move it over into that palette. I can click on this to minimize it, click on it again to maximize it, okay, and I can scroll up and down, and I can also close that tray if I'm not using it. And we can also put multiple palettes within our trays. So now if I want to go back and get my tool palette, I want to drop it in, it's now sitting there under transform. So I can have them both open if I want to, and you can change how the interface works. The idea is that you can have multiple palettes in your different trays. So we've got transform and tool. Maybe over here we want to drop in our materials and maybe brushes. Okay, and so now I can have all this information. You can see that as I open those palettes, it's going to make my canvas a little bit smaller. I'm already working with some limited screen real estate, but it's nice to be able to have quick access to those different palettes that you might need. Keep in mind that, again, you can only open those in one spot at a time. So if I go into open material up here, you know, I'm accessing the exact same palette that I see over here, so it's disappearing. That makes sense. Okay, so these trays are a really nice way to organize your different palettes. That you may use a certain palette often. Usually the tool palette will show up over here on your right hand tray, but if you're more comfortable using it over on the left hand, you can certainly put it over there as well. So if we take a look inside, let's just take a look inside of our tool palette. Close out transform. The tool palette is going to be really key for us as we work here in ZBrush. It has the option for loading up our 3D meshes or 2.5D brushes in our tool palette. So if we're working with the 3D model, this is where we're going to be saving it. We can save as. That will save as a Z tool, and we'll talk more about this as we go on. We can also import and export geometry from the tool palette. This is where we'll convert our primitives into polygon objects. This is where we'll do a lot of the work that has to do with our 3D objects. When we're working with a 3D object, it's going to be working with our tool palette. You know, baking out maps, poly painting, morph targets, doing deformation. A lot of these things are going to happen in this tool palette, and so make sure to pay a lot of attention to that. Okay, here's kind of a listing of some of the last tools that we've accessed. You can always clear that out, restoring, and you can kind of clean that up a little bit. But if we go in here, you can see if we were to import any 3D meshes, they would show up in here as well for us to be able to access and draw onto our screen. Now you can see within the palettes, we also have kind of sub palettes. You can see they're just showing up as names, but if I click on any of these, it's going to open up a whole new sub palette. You can see it's organized here sort of a graphical way, so you can tell what is part of the subtool palette, sub palette. And we can open up geometry. You can see this one's a little bit smaller. Open up deformation. And there are settings for enabling you to, if you would like to have more than one sub palette open at a time. Right now it's set so that you only have one open at a time, so that if I open one, it closes the previous one. Okay, so all these sub palettes, they're going to exist in all of your palettes up here. Okay, you have preferences in here. You go under interface. There's a lot of options in here for changing your interface. You can see we have auto close on UI groups. There's an option in here for palettes. How you want to deal with the actual palettes when you click on them, things like that. All right, so they're organized into palettes and sub-palettes. You can click on the name to open that up. You can organize those palettes into your trays if you'd like to. And then you can scroll up and down to access the different options from your palettes, and you can close those palettes out by clicking on the little handle over here on the two sides. Okay, and then the items on your shelf will remain constant, and your interface will change. The size and everything will kind of move over if you've got your trays open. Okay, so I think with ZBrush, the way to go about just starting to jump in is to kind of show you a very quick workflow all the way through as far as getting a model onto the screen and how it relates to the canvas, because it can be a little bit confusing, and if we just start talking about one specific thing, I think it's going to get a little bit confusing. So let's take some time in the next lesson. I'm just going to go in and create a simple model and just show you how the canvas works and how we can draw it onto our canvas and begin working with it as a 3D model versus working with it as a flattened canvas, which is something you can also do. So we'll clarify all of that in the next lesson.